If you'd like to learn more about how to take better photos with your cell phone, then stay tuned. This video is for you. I've received a lot of questions regarding how to take better photos with cell phones. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, and I've put this video off for quite a while, but I decided to take some time today and come up with my top 10 tips. Now, I've noted these tips right here, and I'm going to reference these as we go through them. Now, I'm going to take these tips, I'm going to copy and paste them in the description below, so feel free to reference them as well. Do a copy and paste, take them with you, modify them, do what you want with them, but hopefully they'll help you out in some way. Now I'm going to level set and provide a game plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover these top 10 tips with you, and then we're going to do just a little demo, and I'm going to finish up with a few final thoughts. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Tip number 1, learn everything you can about your phone's camera and related applications. In the world of mirror versus mirrorless cameras, did you know that your phone's camera is mirrorless? Many people talk about the advantages of mirrorless technology, and you already have a mirrorless camera built into your phone. Now, phones also have a fixed aperture and an electronic shutter. Now, unlike a traditional DSLR, you're not able to manipulate the aperture inside your phone's camera. And you can easily install many different camera applications on your phone. I happen to use an application called ProCam. I use the free version, and I'm not endorsed in any way to promote their application. I'll post a link to it in the description below if you care to learn more about it. Tip number 2, discover the strengths and weaknesses of your camera. Know that camera phones are typically fine in good lighting, but they struggle in low lighting, and this is due to the sensor size. Dynamic range also suffers typically with phone cameras, so consider using HDR. And relatively high ISOs can generate a lot of noise. For example, if you use an ISO of say 1000 on an entry-level DSLR, that's typically not a problem. An ISO of 1000 on a phone camera, it's going to generate a lot of noise, so just something to think about. Tip number 3. Consider shooting in RAW and post-editing. Now, in low light, or whenever you want to get the most out of your image, this is when you might want to consider shooting in RAW. Post-editing is good to reduce the noise, adjust the white balance, add sharpness, etc. And keep in mind that shooting in RAW is not needed for all shots. And if you don't plan to do any post-processing, just stay with JPEG. And JPEG is typically the default on most of your phone-based cameras out there anyway. Tip number 4, clean your lens. Now this is really important, and many people fail to do it, but we have our phones in our pockets and we're always touching and grabbing the phones, and right there I just put my finger on the lens. So it's important to clean it. Clean it with a soft cloth, keep it in your pocket, or perhaps use your t-shirt, things like that, but just be sure to clean it before you go taking your photos. Tip number 5. Do not zoom. I'm not a fan of zooming here. Mobile phones do not offer optical zoom, which means poor quality will result. Now, I should say that's an overwhelming majority of mobile phones that are out there. I think there are 1 or 2 that are coming on the market which may have some kind of optical zoom in them, but chances are you have a phone without optical zoom, so try not to zoom with it because it's going to be just digital. Try to get physically closer if you can, or consider cropping after the shot. So if you want to get up on something, try to get in closer to it, and if you're unable to, go ahead and take the shot and then crop, and you'll notice that the results are going to be a little better. Tip number 6, work on composition. Try to use the rule of thirds. Enable the grid in the application if it's available. Now, I know in the ProCam application there is a grid that I typically use, and it helps to divide that screen into thirds, and it just makes for a more pleasantly looking image in my opinion. Also consider framing here. So framing is something where you could just take the shot standard, or you can try to fill the frame with your subject. You'll just get kind of a different look and feel from it. Also consider leading lines and separating the subject from the background, which I think will help create kind of that softer background if you're doing portraits, things like that. Tip number 7, take shots from different angles. Now this may sound kind of obvious, or maybe it's not obvious to you, but try to get down low and angle your phone where it's up, or get high and angle down, or maybe from the side, and you'll notice you'll get a different look and feel of that image. Just something to think about. Tip number 8, touch screen to lock focus and exposure. Now this might seem kind of obvious as well, but I don't think many people do this. So when you activate the application on your phone to take a photo, just ensure that you're touching the subject that you want in focus, and it'll also lock the focus and also dial in for the exposure that's needed to get that image. Tip number 9, use a tripod or a steady surface for slow shutters. Now, this is important here. Consider using a tripod for any shot that's going to be slower than 1/60th of a second, and also consider using the built-in self-timer to try to avoid the shake of you touching the phone itself. So I'm going to go out and we do some demos here, and I'm going to make use of a little mini tripod. Now I'll post a link in the description below as to where you can get it. It's the Mini Joby, and I don't have it with me right now. I believe it's out in my vehicle. So again, look to the description below, and I'm going to show it to you in the demo when we get out there. I'll do some kind of low light situational shots, and we'll see what we can get with that. Tip number 10, practice, 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 and practice some more. Now, this might sound really obvious, but it's important to understand how your camera works. And the more you use it, the better off you'll be. Don't wait until you're in strange situations to think, well, yeah, I can kind of take a low light situation. I remember Mark talking about it in some way, or maybe you came across it somewhere else. But just have some fun with your phone and your camera right now. Just go inside and shoot anything. Step outside, shoot anything. Go in all different kinds of conditions. Just have fun with it. It's digital. It's not going to cost you anything to go do it. The more you use it, the better off you'll be with it. So with all of that said right there, let's go ahead and jump right in to just kind of a quick demo and have some fun and see what we can get.
I know you live every day like it's your last. Please slow down, 'cause life can move faster than your wild heart can catch. When you can't see the truth you surround, follow the light that speaks through your soul. Chaos has turned your white clouds to dark gray, and you taste the tears and the rain. And I know you have all the strength to find your way as you teach the world to be brave. Follow the light that speaks through your eyes. Even stronger every time that you cry. Your eyes. Even stronger every time that you cry. I know you're true. You know it too.
Now that the sun's went down, it's completely dark outside. It's time for me to come inside and give you a few final thoughts. I had a lot of fun taking the shots with this iPhone 6s. Keeping in mind, again, it doesn't really matter what cell phone you have. I implemented a lot of the tips that we talked about before, and I think the resulting images turned out very well in my opinion. Now, a majority of those shots were taken in RAW, and again, I was using an application called ProCam, and it's a free version. I think it works pretty well. Now, there were two types of images that the camera was not able to keep in a RAW format, and instead it took them in JPEG. In that application, ProCam, there's a feature called slow shutter, and I use that feature to grab that water that flowed over the rocks in that small stream, and I use that same feature to capture the light trails that occurred on that highway. Now, I think it's probably just a limitation of the application itself, and that's perfectly fine. I pulled all of these images into Lightroom and did just some slight modifications to them, but I think the resulting images turned out really nice. Now, keep in mind that one of the major limitations to a cell phone compared to a DSLR when it comes to taking images, again, is the sensor size. When you're in low light situations, the cell phone is not ideal to take pictures, but keep in mind that this is also one of the most convenient devices you're going to have. You're going to use this for many purposes, obviously, to take calls, make calls, and to do text messaging, games, and social media and everything else. Whereas your DSLR, its primary purpose is really just to take photographs and maybe some video. And it's also much bigger than your cell phone. I can put this in my pocket. I really can't put this in my pocket. But understand that if you want to take your photography to the next level, you might consider an entry-level DSLR of some sort. The sensor size is much larger and is capable of capturing much more detail, especially in low light situations. But again, it doesn't mean that the cell phone is a slouch. Take these tips that I've recommended and put them to use, and you'll see that you can get some great images as well. Now, I like carrying my cell phone around, and I use it to capture memories. So if I don't have my DSLR with me, I think it's capable of taking some good shots. I don't really have any major issues with it. But if you want to get that nice soft background, you're going to find that it's going to struggle a bit. Now, some of the built-in applications on cell phones have the ability to try and digitally soften the background, but it's really not the same as when you can manipulate the aperture on any given lens out there to create that soft background. Now, that's just my 2 cents here, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. It's called Real World. More often than not, I post videos about photography and technology, but you never know. So until the next video, take care of yourself and be safe.